Hi everyone, welcome back to G&G, the place to be for everything that's not D&D. Although today we're kind of breaking that rule by taking a look at Victoriana. I can't even say that right. I've always been calling it Victoriana, accidentally putting another N at the end. Blah. So Victoriana, I'm not sure how to say it. That being said, I actually have the older edition of this game. I just couldn't get through it. I bought it and then just, life happened. So I was very excited to hear that this is coming out for 5th edition. I normally don't like things that are taken from their native rule set and put into 5th edition because I feel like it can destroy the flavor of the game. But it does remove a huge barrier of entry when learning a new game. Learning about the world, you can learn just about the world, not about the rule set. So I'm actually really excited to dig into this. I just got this today. So let's get into it. Let's go ahead. All right, so we've got our contents here, introduction, association, creation. So that association is really cool. It's kind of like your detective agency or whatever it is that your group of PCs do. You get your own little setup. They have creating your irregulars. So they don't have backgrounds. They have life path. That's cool. Whole new set of classes, new magic rules. Now they've got lineages as well, which is just kind of the new way of saying race. Then we'll go into the classes. We'll take a look at a couple of those, maybe a little bit more in depth. Feats, goods and services, sorcery and steam. Because in this game, you have magic, but you also have technology. So, and technology is kind of connected to magic in a certain way. It's a steampunk setting. The new rules and rules of the engagement, game master, kind of how to create a game. They really go into like how to create clues and things like that. So if you haven't kind of run a game like that, maybe you're just, kind of more adventure type, kind of goes into that. And then we have the Visitor's Guide to the Smoke, which is essentially this alternative version of Victorian London, what it's like. So, yeah. So they do talk about the basic rules. Like if you want to go to get the SRD, they talk about the things they've added right here. So I'm excited. Look at this piece of art. Look at this piece of art. Isn't it fantastic? Love it. Okay. So they have an illuminated society, the Illuminat, however you say that. That's essentially the church. They even here in the bottom left, I guess to the left, they talk about, it's kind of the religion, but if you wanted to include some like real world religion with it, they kind of have a quick explanation of like, yeah, you can totally do that. Here's a couple of the factions within the society and the religion, because as you see, it's just like the canon, like where they get their religious beliefs. These are the 3 types of social classes: nobility, bourgeoisie, and proletariat. On the right, they do talk about like, hey, some of these terms might be a little charged. Here's why we used it. And then there's even automatons now. Very steampunk. Here's the new lineages and a gorgeous piece of art. We'll get into lineages here in a second. So after that, it really just gives you the quick version of what this world is. So this world is kind of like Earth, but magic was already there, but after this thing called the Great Cataclysm, which I didn't really read a ton about, magic's kind of slowly getting weaker and technology's replacing it. So imagine a steampunk Victorian society with magic, dragons. I mean, dragons are pretty much gone, but so on, all that stuff kind of thrown together. So I can definitely see why this might lend to more of a D&D style rule set. So they talk about here on the left, apothecaries in the old ways. Animists are kind of, it's like the low magic. It seems like there was a little bit of an inquisition against them. And then the high magic is the thaumaturgical consortium. Another big theme in this, in addition to magic, is that is like the change in society from the Industrial Revolution, factories, all that. So there are a few revolutionary ideas. They give you the quick version. They also talk about the horrors from beyond, necromancy, the forbidden arts, the dangers of vices, in the religion, and so on and so forth. So, and the call to adventure. So that's kind of just, this is, like I said, it's the quick version. This quickly explains various different things here. Like here's the different classes: adventurers, companions. I like the companion class. We'll take a look at that. We don't have to go too deep into it because I did a quick run through of the book before I decided to film, but I've had this thing like literally just a couple hours. Association creation. So what this does is you actually make your like detective agency or whatever it is. Like they give you an example, like espionage, monster hunting, mystery. I always kind of think you're Sherlock Holmes. Where's your, your Baker Street address? What is it there? And they give you a bunch of different ideas on how to do with that. So let's take a look at one of the monster hunting associations, the first one. Examples, the staff of an apothecary who harvests valuable components from monsters to create radical medicines and valuable talismans. So that's like your premise. That's what you guys do. And they've got they've got extra stuff as well. How you advertise, how do people know about you? And I think that's a neat little thing. That's also something like a prop, cool little prop a GM could create, because those are nice. What your headquarters is like, what does it look like? Every headquarters gets 2 features, which are 2 little like stat benefits. So let's pick one here. Bolt hole. Your association has access to a bolt hole located away from your headquarters. This is discrete location, has no apparent ties to your association, allowing you to lay low and avoid prying eyes of those who seek you. So you get 2 of those, and that's pretty cool. I got some example ones here if you just wanted to pick up and go. There you are. Now, creating an irregular. That is creating your character. So here's where we kind of get into it, I think. Yeah, so, yeah. You pick your life path. That's kind of replaced your background in D&D. It's a little bit more in-depth. So you can roll your childhood experiences, whether proletariat, bourgeoisie, noble, then your occupations. All of those give you proficiencies, so that's cool. There you go. And you can create your own, obviously. So here's starting cash. Your alignment, it's kind of broken up into order, entropy, serenity, and apathy. So there you go. Pick your vices. Everyone's got to have a vice in this game. Then you create your contact, for your character. That's kind of nice. I think they even have did they have example ones? No, they don't. Just the various 10 questions about your character, Here's a quick look at the character sheet. Kind of like the look of it. Looks good. Lineages. All right, so lineages, they're essentially the races. They have a pronunciation guide here on the right because I kind of killed them all. So, for example, the humans are Dina. I can never say it right. Or Dini. We'll take a look. So here's kind of the humans. You're apparently temperamental, so you get to either roll or pick over here. So let's see here. What am I? I'm an Aries myself, so I would gain proficiency in 2 skills of my choice. Cool. And I can add my proficiency bonus to my initiative rolls. Cool. So yeah, you get stuff like that. There's essentially the elves. Essentially, they are naturally psychic. These guys here, they're massive, but they, I'm going to say it, Grugak. Yeah, they can see your feelings and stuff like that. Here's the dwarves. I'm just going to Lacald. Then we've got the Murlocs and the Pucks. They're essentially kind of different versions of Beastmen. So, fun. Classes. All right. You've got, what do we got here? 8 new classes. Adventurer, it's kind of the fighter. Animist is the kind of lowborn magic user. The companion, I actually really like that. A defender who knocks down opponents or pushes them away long enough to run. I don't know why. I remember reading about it, and I'll show you in a second. The dodger, it's a thief. Gadgeteer, that's the technology person. The reckonor, how do I say that? That's the smiling grifter who commands social encounters. That's kind of, I believe, he is the bard. Sleuth, your detective, and your thaumaturg, that's your good old-fashioned wizard. Not old-fashioned, because it's actually quite different. So you're an adventurer. You get battle instincts. Let's take a look here. What's the first thing they get? Battle instincts here. You can add your proficiency bonus to your initiative roll. Then you get to pick your fighting technique. Bashing, binding, dirty fighting. fencing, fisticuffs, sharpshooting, shin kicking, wrestling. Cool. And their archetypes, they've got commander and the gutter hunter. The animus. So, okay, magic's very different in this. And I'm going to take a second. I'll talk about it. You essentially hear the parapets. Those are kind of your spells. I think, no, these are like the cantrips, rather. Excuse me. These are your cantrips, but you can cast up to 6. So you have this thing called quintessence. All right. So you have as many quintessence points equal to your level, and you can only spend as many quintessence equal to the limit. So that's kind of like your spell levels, because that's just how it works. There is no spell level. Every spell beyond your cantrips have a cost. So there you go. So this one's really about making talismans to do various effects. It's pretty neat. So that's just the quick version. We could spend forever on the magic system. The companion. I like the companion. Here's why I like the companion. What's the quote here? Don't worry about me, Mum. I wasn't always a butler, you know. These fists have seen their share of matches back when I wore a rookery suit. So you're like, I love it. You're the butler, but there's more to you than that. So I don't know why. I just really like that. Like, that's what I would play. I just like it. So they get fighting techniques, honest advice. What's this here? You have a wealth of information shared based on your experience. Whenever someone comes to you for advice, you can give your honest opinion and recommendation. Before their next long rest, as long as they have followed your guidance, they have advantage on any ability check relating to the problem that they shared with you. So that's cool. Neat stuff. The Dodger, this is our thief. He gets sneak attack. Your artful technique. So that's your archetype. We've got an infiltrator. What's the other guy we got? I know we have more than an infiltrator. Just missed it. And the scrounge. Gadgeteer. It's kind of your artificer type here. He has prototypes. Those are that's your cantrips. And then patents are essentially your spells. Ish. I don't want to say it. They're not actually spells. There's the whole thing. We'll talk about it in a second when we get there. We got the philosophies, which are your classes here. We've got a technologist and a technomancer. Raconteur. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I feel so uneducated when I'm reading some of these. I don't know what it is. So he's got expertise and presence, so he's got here it is, the presence dice that he can use to spend for various abilities. So that's cool. Here's a neat little thing he's got, and I think, I don't know how it's going to be in play. Enforced civility. He can essentially pause combat to kind of like try to talk it out. And I think that's kind of neat. They actually kind of talk about it a little bit more later. Your sleuth, your detective character here. The sleuth does have, as we get here, I believe, one of the types, the occultist, is like the anti-magic guy. So that's really cool. And then our thaumaturg, that's kind of the wizard. He's got the cantrip. He's got the spells. Quintessent limit is still the same thing there. So, and then they have thaumaturgical colleges where it kind of really goes into just different ways you can kind of change your spells. A list of feats. Oh, good stuff. Complications. So you have to have 2 complications in this game. Let's take a look here. Black sheep. You are a disgrace to your family, profession, or union. There has been some argument, perceived slight, or dishonor concerning you, factual or fabricated. Those aware of your history watch you closely and look for any reason to dismiss or disown you. So those are just fun little role play things that make your character interesting. So that's neat. Some new downtime activities here. You can go practice your faith, work real hard, Goods and services. So this is kind of like they just, it's your normal gear chapter. They talk about the different types of armor, ether weave, essentially. It's not really armor. It's this kind of like weave that's been put into your clothing. Gives you a little bit of bonus. Good light armor. Nobles tend to use it a lot. Like a little advertisement over here for corset. There needs to be a magic corset. I'm not sure if I saw one, but I'm sure we could do that. As you can see, we've got our ranged weapons here. Various tools. Our airships. Like I said, very steampunk. Then we got some items of power. So, wondrous firearms. So, these are kind of what says what is it? All wondrous firearms are common items of power. So, they're new, but they're not exactly, very rare. A mono machine gun. So you can aim at one creature or you can attack multiple creatures. Cool, machine gun. Nice. There you go. Some various relics, cool magic items of power. Nice. Clockworks, creatures here. So clockworks, they're kind of like prosthetics, at least in this regard here. They even have, later when we get into the GM section, they have like, instead of dying, you can like sacrifice a limb. And so there you go. You sacrifice a limb, live through the scene, or live through the adventure. Now you've got your arm. Here's kind of the brief history of magic. Really breaks that down. I didn't really get into that too in-depth, at least the history. But as you can see, this is the part where we actually get into the magic of this world. So here are the animus, essentially cantrips. Let's take a look at one. Let's pick Ice Splash. So it's one action. You throw a glass bottle full of water at a target within range, which creates an icy explosion on contact. Make a ranged spell attack on a target. On a hit, takes 1d4 cold damage and must make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, takes an additional 1d4 cold damage, and their movement speed is reduced to slow, as if carefully walking on ice till the next turn. The damage of the initial attack can be increased when you reach level 5. So there you go. Nice little quick one. Quick little damage attack. So now, talismans, that's kind of their spells. So animal companion, you essentially, you feed the animal some really good food and he ends up really liking you. So now you got an animal companion. The more quintessence you spend, the tougher the animal is, the higher the CR you get to bring in. So, no, sorry. All additional fun stuff there. So that's just a quick look at that. Let me see here. Let's move on to, here's gadgeteering. So here's your prototype gadgets. These are your cantrips. So what do we got here? Concealed lockpicks. Let's take a look at that. This set of lockpicking equipment is incorporated into gloves, bracelets, cuffs, disguising their dubious nature. While wearing this gadget, you always have access to lockpicks, even if you don't have any other infiltrator tools. And you may reroll a d20 once on a failed attempt of lockpicking. There you go. Then we get into we're not there yet, their patent gadgets. This is their spells, as it were. Let's take a look at Disruption Field. Here we go. Costs 1 quintessence. This gadget disrupts the flow of quintessence around your body, lessening the impact of some magical attacks. Whenever a spell attack that costs 1 quintessence targets you, you may use your reaction to activate Disruption Field and either give advantage on the saving throw or take half damage from the spell attack. So then you can spend more quintessence here. When you power this gadget with 2 quintessence, this gadget affects spells that cost up to 2 quintessence. So there you go. Neat little. Yeah, this is really where it kind of looks different compared to D&D. Thaumaturgy. We got your cantrip. Etheric Bolt is one of their cantrips. You fire a bolt of quintessence energy. Does 1d10. And then it goes up afterwards. Cool. Let's take a look at one of their big spells here. What do we got? Let's do... I think we recognize Greater Restoration, Dispel Magic. Like, these are all the spells we're really starting to recognize, kind of from D&D. So there was a quick look at that. The new skills they talk about in Rules of Engagement. They have Etheria, Engineering, Etiquette, Sciences, Streetwise. And then they have just how to, essentially, we're starting to get to the GM section here. the art of detection clues, which is good because sometimes I feel like GMs, we know what we need to do, but sometimes it's nice to reread it, get a different perspective, especially even if you've been doing it for a while. If you've never done it, it's real nice. It's one of those things like you're expected to know what to do, but sometimes people don't talk to you about it. Social engagements here, how to use, essentially the social, because there's class rules and stuff like that. So, because one of the characters even has an ability to ignore that. I think it's one of the gadgeteers. So, then it talks like after people like you, you can make requests, just ways to kind of deal with that. All right. So, unpleasantness. So, combat's a little different in this game, as in it doesn't seem to do squares or feet or anything like that. It breaks things down into zones. So, pros and cons there. You won't necessarily need a grid, but if you kind of break one out, it might get a little confusing. I don't know here. Some new actions: disable, improvised attack, repair, new damage and healing rules, the presumption of non-lethality. It's an action game. It's kind of like high-flying, I would say fantasy, kind of high adventure. So I guess there you go. It's just a general rule. Assume no one's trying to kill you, or you're not trying to kill anybody here. Vehicle combat, always good when you've got hovercraft and all that stuff here. All right. Then this, like I said, now we're in the game master section. Talks about how to create a game that you and your players will like. And we're kind of getting towards the end here. You either know a GM section or you don't. All right, guys. There you go. That is Victoriana. If I'm saying that right, like I said, for years called it Victoriana, and there is no extra N at the end. But I was really excited to see this. I hope you guys are excited for it too. I actually think the D&D 5e rules makes it easier to get into this game. I've had the original rules for this in the 3rd edition for some time, never quite got through it, but I've learned more about the setting just in sitting down and looking through it today than I did previously, and more about how it's played. So I've got to give it its points back. I'm not usually a fan to swapping over to a D&D rule set, but it really does knock down the barriers. So if you like this, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, anything like that. And maybe later we'll take a look at the Menagerie, which is the monster book. So enjoy.